Thank you for that introduction, and almost not a student anymore, which kind of makes me sad, but I defended in December, so graduation is coming up, though it's been 6 years in this department, so it will be a very bittersweet moment. So thank you for attending the annual HEI Research Day, and I do feel like I've kind of come full circle since it was at Research Day in 2014 that I actually got my acceptance into the program. And now here I am 6 years later presenting about my doctoral work. So I'm so privileged and humbled to be able to have this opportunity to present my work, for which I received the David Sackett Award in 2019. And today I'll be presenting the results of 2 of my studies from my doctoral dissertation on the effectiveness of the Move to Learn program. Oh, and my slides aren't moving. Does anybody else see my slides? Okay, here we go. So both myself and this project are privileged to be supported by McMaster University and University of Toronto, as well as CHR and NASPM. In addition, this project was well supported by a number of my colleagues at the Infant and Child Health Lab and my supervisory committee. And of course, I am so humbled to have received the David Sackett Scholarship. David Sackett has been an absolutely amazing inspiration to me and a role model in how to bring evidence-based practice into all fields of research. And I am truly thankful for the opportunity to reap the benefits of this training program that he created for us. And before I begin, I'd also like to acknowledge that these studies took place at McMaster University and the University of Toronto. And McMaster University recognizes and acknowledges that it's located on the traditional territories of the Mississauga and Haudenosaunee nations and within the lands protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. And the University of Toronto operates on the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit, and is still home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island. And I am very grateful to have had the opportunity to work on both these lands. So estimates of any delay in young children range from about 16 to 20%, leaving 84 to 84% of children developing typically. And while we may refer to these children as developing typically, they are certainly not developing optimally. Across all children, 38% are not sufficiently active, 21% are overweight or obese, and 28% are not ready to enter into kindergarten. And we can't conclude that children with atypical development are the sole contributors to these risk groups, though they're certainly overrepresented. Therefore, there is huge potential for improving the development of all these children. And there is mounting evidence linking health status and behaviors in childhood to future health problems in adolescence and adulthood. So primary prevention during this preschool time is critical to optimize health and development and reduce the likelihood of future health issues like cardiovascular disease and poor academic achievement. So what's causing this suboptimal development? Well, there's empirical and theoretical evidence that really puts movement skills at the center. Underlying the rise in physical inactivity, poor school readiness, and obesity rates is hypothesized to be poorly developed motor skills. So the attainment of fundamental movement skills, or FMS, during the early years is critical to overall child development. Both observational and experimental studies support relationship between proficient FMS and engagement in physical activity, cognition, and positive self-concept. So if we can target movement skills, we would have the potential to impact development more broadly. So considering this evidence, the Move to Learn program was developed to improve the FMS of 3- and 4-year-old children with the ultimate goal of improving overall physical, cognitive, and mental development. So Move to Learn is evidence-based and integrates best practices from early childhood education and movement intervention research. So specifically, it consists of 10 one-hour-a-week sessions and uses direct instruction strategies and requires active parent or caregiver involvement throughout each of the sessions. And additionally, it has a curricular link with the inclusion of a little pre-literacy component at the end. So my first research study asked, what is the effect of this program on 3- and 4-year-olds? And this project has been published in 2 different manuscripts in Frontiers in Pediatrics. So the basic design was just quasi-experimental, where parents could select to put their children in the intervention right away or be placed on a waitlist control group. They had assessments before and after, and then the waitlist control group received the intervention, and they had a 5-week follow-up. We measured motor skills and 2 aspects of pre-literacy, print awareness and alphabet knowledge, all using validated standardized scales. So the results showed that children in the experimental group compared to the control group actually significantly increased their movement scales. So this is the gross motor score. In the red line there is the experimental group. And they also improved their print awareness over time compared to the control group. And there was no effect on alphabet knowledge. And if you look at the control group, once they received the intervention, so highlighted there in green, they had significant gains in all three scores. So the gross motor score, print awareness, and alphabet knowledge. And these gains were maintained at the 5-week follow-up. So the main takeaways from this first study was that we have some preliminary support for the effectiveness of this program. And we have some support for the value of including parents, since they reported practicing the activities at home about 3 days a week. But we are limited in our conclusions because of methodological constraints, which allowed for concerns for selection, performance, and detection bias. And we're missing some information on potential intervention effects on other unmeasured outcomes. The next research question I wanted to ask was to reevaluate using some more rigorous methodology, as well as a couple of additional outcomes, including perceived movement competence, as well as the subjective experience of the parents participating in the program. So 32 children were randomized to either enter the program right away or be placed on the wait list. And then we had assessments take place before and after, as per usual. And we used the same outcome assessments for motor skills and print awareness. We removed alphabet knowledge. And we also added perceived physical competence using a pictorial scale. We embedded a qualitative study using a focus group and some interviews with parents who were participating in Move to Learn. So I'm presenting the integrated results. So the quantitative results showed there was no intervention effect on movement skills, though the experimental group did make small non-significant gains over time. But the qualitative data showed while parents weren't specifically commenting on the proficiency of their child's movements, they described an increase in the variety of movements that their child was engaging in. Similarly, for pre-literacy skills, there was no statistical intervention effect, though non-significant medium-sized gains were observed in the experimental group. And the qualitative findings found much more active engagement in reading activities and a greater predilection to explore different elements of both the text and the story. And there was no intervention effect on perceived physical competence scores. Actually, both groups decreased their scores over time, though not significantly. And this really contrasted with what we were hearing from the parents in the qualitative study, which showed that they were seeing increases in their child's competence and a general greater willingness to try new movements. And in terms of parent engagement and activities at home, we found a small intervention effect for practicing motor activities, but not reading activities, though both groups did increase over time. And the qualitative findings showed an increased awareness of the importance of engaging in these types of activities at home and changes to the approach that they were taking when they were practicing. So creating more opportunities for mastery and spending more time exploring the book and the narrative to allow for more active participation from their child. So overall, this study showed no short-term intervention effects detected over 10 weeks. But the qualitative findings illuminated possible intervention effects on different facets of my outcomes of interest, as well as some unexpected outcomes around the parent-child relationship. And this study also highlighted the importance of including parents in early intervention programming and implementation, and it showed off the complementary value of embedding a qualitative study within a quantitative trial. Nonetheless, there were some limitations that need to be addressed. So primarily, the results are limited by a very restricted sample size. Additionally, some of the quantitative measures might not have been sufficiently sensitive to detect small changes over 10 weeks, and the generalizability of the results is restricted. And finally, because the qualitative study was embedded within the RCT, some of the methodology was constrained. Nonetheless, I do feel that this thesis has important methodological, research, and practical implications. So namely, I've highlighted the value of using multiple and mixing methodologies to generate knowledge from different perspectives, ultimately leading to a more comprehensive understanding of an intervention. I've also highlighted the potential for component-based interventions with active involvement of parents. And finally, I believe there are practical implications such that Move to Learn has the potential to be implemented in communities. And one of the most exciting parts of doing this work is the so many different directions it can take in the future. So first, Move to learn needs to be evaluated on other outcomes of interest. There's clearly a need to improve the short-term intervention effects. And finally, further diversifying methodological design by nesting an acute study to look at a single session of the 10-week trial, as well as including some more long-term follow-up as these children enter into kindergarten. So thank you so much for listening. This was such a big part of my life, and I'm so happy that I got to share it with you all today, and I'm happy to take any questions.